Hey, this is Matt NES. So, licensed games. Sometimes they're crap, but other times they're not. And today I want to talk about some of my personal favorite licensed video games. We will be talking about a couple of the usual suspects that come up in videos like this, but a lot of the video games that I've picked for this personal list are ones that don't get a lot of love and don't get a lot of attention online. So why don't we take a look at some of my favorite licensed video games? Let's check it out. Before we get started on my little sampling of licensed video games today, I just want to remind you guys that this is my personal list. And if I happen to have missed a game that you really like, why don't you let me know down in the comments below. Maybe considering subscribing too while you're at it. Okay, to start off this list, I think the first game I want to show off is one that I don't think a lot of people bring up in licensed video game videos, like this one right here. This is regular show Mordecai and Rigby in 8-Bit Land. And hey look, it's a game developed by WayForward. I wonder why this game happens to be on my list. This is a relatively straightforward game. This is a time when retro-inspired platformers were in abundance, and I guess this is just another one to add to the list, but I don't know, man. There's some other things going for this game that I think really adds to the charm. Along with the normal platforming levels, this game also features different other types of gameplay modes that are found in other 8-bit games, like space shooters, or top-down shooters like Blaster Master or Smash TV. You can also switch between Mordecai and Rigby on the fly, where each of the two duo has their own special powers, like Rigby being able to fit into smaller places, and Mordecai having a double jump. The music is also composed by the fantastically great Jake Kaufman, who does a lot of WayForward's other games as well. Jake really gives the soundtrack a very strong, like, Konami sort of feel for the game. Again, if you played games from the 8-bit era by Konami, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I will say right now, this game is very, very Nintendo hard. It's gonna take a few tries and a few deaths in order to get through this game, but luckily this game does feature unlimited continues, so that's a plus. So overall, if you like retro platformers and you're not sick of them by now, here's one more based off of an incredibly great licensed cartoon show. Next up, we have Adventure Time. Hey Ice King, why'd you steal our garbage? The name just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? No, but this is another really great game done by WayForward once again. Imagine that. This game has a little bit more of an action-adventure vibe to it, specifically from Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link, which is a game that I've already told you how much I think is very much underappreciated. Most of the gameplay takes place in 2D, where on the world map it's top-down, and while you're on the world map you can actually get into random encounters, which once again turns into 2D action segments, just like Zelda 2. With WayForward being the developer of this game, you can also kind of see some Shantae influences making its way into the game when it comes to, you know, either dialogue or how certain quests are set up. But yeah, I think this is a fantastic action-adventure game. It's not super long, but for what it's worth, for what I paid for it definitely, I think this is a fantastic licensed game based off of Adventure Time. Very funny dialogue, it has a lot of characters from the show, portrayed very accurately. I think this is a fantastic game. I very much recommend it. One game that a lot of people bring up in videos like this is the NES classic Ducktales. But not a lot of people talk about this one right here, Ducktales Remastered for the Nintendo Wii U, PS3, and Xbox 360. And hey look, this game is also developed by WayForward. Yeah, I think we're sensing a pattern here at this point. But with that out of the way, I think this is a fantastic remake of this game. I know a lot of people don't really like this version, and I think they prefer the NES version, but, you know, hey, to each their own, and I prefer this version for many different reasons. I love that they brought back the entire classic cast from the original 1980s version of DuckTales to reprise their roles, and essentially this game is a bunch of new episodes of DuckTales, and this, like, going back and listening to these characters and playing these levels, like, it was really a huge nostalgia trip for me. The levels are also greatly expanded in a lot of different ways. The beginning of the game has a really awesome opening stage / tutorial level, which teaches you a lot of the mechanics, like bouncing on the cane and hitting things with your cane with like a golf club. And this game added one crucial thing that was absolutely missing from the original NES game, and that's the ability to jump into your money bin and swim around in it. Like, come on, man. How can you not love that? But yes, I'm definitely a huge fan of this game. I loved every minute of it when I played it back in the day, and I will definitely come back to this game in the future. Very much recommended for me if you guys have never played any version of this game. I recommend this one over even the NES version, although the NES version is still worth playing as well. So next up is a game that actually just got a re-release in the Lion King and Aladdin double pack, but this game in particular wasn't included on this. This is the Super Nintendo version of Aladdin. And I'm just going to come right out and say it that this is my personal favorite game in the series. And you'll notice that it says right here on the cartridge that it's developed by Capcom. And that's probably a big reason why I like this game a lot more than the Sega Genesis version. I know the Genesis version is a lot more loved because they give Aladdin a sword, and I guess, you know, that makes him a little bit more of a badass character, but I don't know, like, Aladdin doesn't really use a sword very much in the movies. As a matter of fact, he usually just, like, outsmarts and outgraces his opponents just by, you know, good acrobatics and stuff like that, which is exactly what you do in this game right here. You can swing onto ledges and bounce off of rooftops. You can, you know, crash into enemies and bounce off their heads. It just seems like a much more accurate depiction of the character of Aladdin, especially early on in the movie, like during the opening theme song. You know the one, one step ahead of the hitman. You know the one I'm talking about, right? A lot of the non-Aladdin music that's actually in this game, I actually really enjoy it. It has kind of a Super Ghouls and Ghosts sort of feel to it. Like, seriously, the presentation, the music, the gameplay, the flow, like, this does just feel like a good, solid Capcom platformer. If this was not an Aladdin game and they just switched out the characters and this was just, like, Arabian Hyper Kid or something like that, like, I would still probably have enjoyed this game back in the day. I still own both versions of this game, and I still think the Genesis version is a fun time, but when it comes to favorites, I have to give it to this one, guys. And if you guys want to hunt down a copy of this game, I don't think it's that expensive. I think it still is under the $10 mark if you're wanting to buy this game legit, or you could just emulate it, just saying. Next up is a game that I personally didn't own. This one was actually my brother's game, and I just happened to sneak into his room and played it when he wasn't looking when we were kids. This is SpiderMan vs. Kingpin on the Sega Genesis. So when it comes to people saying, you know, what the best Spider-Man game is, it's obviously going to be Sony Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. But for a retro-styled 2D Spider-Man game, this one absolutely is my favorite. You fight a lot of Spider-Man's rogues gallery in this game, from Dr. Octopus to Kingpin to the Lizard. Even Venom shows up. You can stick to any surface, web sling, and you even get the Spider Sense. Your Spider Sense will go off whenever a mini-boss or regular boss is close by, and I thought that's a really good touch to add the Spider Sense like that into the game like that. And they add other really neat details along with it too. You have, just like in the comic books, a limited amount of web that you can use. And what's the way to refill your web cartridges? Why, taking pictures of dangerous situations and taking pictures of Spider-Man and turning them into the Daily Bugle to earn money. The soundtrack, while not amazing, still has that incredibly iconic Genesis twang. It's pretty unmistakable. But overall, guys, I think this is a great game. There aren't a lot of really good ways to play it outside of just the Genesis original. Again, you could just emulate it, but, you know, because I don't think it's been re-released on anything else, so maybe don't feel so bad about pirating it? I don't know. That's your conscience, not mine. Okay, guys, I know that this game might be considered to be a bad game, and it very well might be, but The nostalgia is strong with this one. MTV's Beavis and Butthead, specifically the Genesis version. I don't know, man, like, it has all the iconic characters from the show, and, like, they all do things in the game that you would probably see them do in the show. Like, Mr. Van Driesen is a guy that, like, teaches you, like, hints in the game. Tom Anderson rides you on his lawnmower. Frickin' Todd shows up as a normal punk enemy in the game. Coach Buzzcut and Principal McVicker show up as, like, obstacles to the boys, not necessarily being, like, actual enemies, but, like, you actually have to, like, solve puzzles in order to, like, get around their crap. And speaking of that, that's one of the main draws of this game, solving puzzles and collecting MacGuffins together, in this case, that being ripped-up GWAR tickets. And this is what I would imagine a Beavis and Butthead game being like on the Sega Genesis. Just the two kids, like, digging around their neighborhood, getting into trouble, and collecting ripped-up GWAR tickets so they can go to a frickin' concert. There's a lot of flaws with this game. You know, it's one continue only, and it's game over forever. There is a password system, but it's one of those, like, mile-long passwords with both uppercase and lowercase letters. There's a lot of cheap one-hit deaths in the game as well, but ultimately, guys, the nostalgia is way too strong for me with this game. Could this game have been done better? Yes, absolutely, but for a licensed game in the 90s on the Sega Genesis, like, I'm surprised that it turned out as well as it did. And I think one of the things that they absolutely nailed with this game is just the overall feel of what a Beavis and Butthead game would be. Can I recommend this game to other people? Probably not, honestly, but I don't know, if you're feeling adventurous, if you're willing to delve into a bunch of, like, retro gaming crap, like, go ahead and give it a shot, but, like, for the love of God, use save states. Okay, those were just a few of my personal favorite licensed video games of all time, and a couple of them, I will admit, they're not the best video games in the world, but they're my personal favorites, so what can you do? But if you guys want to let me know of some of your favorite nostalgic licensed games, let me know down in the comments down below. And if you've made it this far into the video without subscribing, come on, man, subscribe, bro! Ring that bell, too, to be notified of future videos and streams. I always stream on Fridays. Well, just saying, I do. If you also want to help out the channel just a little bit more, you know, the like button's down below. You know, it's there. Don't say you have to click it, but I'm just saying it's there. Be a big help if you would click it. You could also follow me on Twitter at the 8BitMadNES, where I post all kinds of things. Things and stuff and stuff and things. That's what I post on Twitter? Yes. But most of all, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Later.